Hi, this is Fahad Al-Thani. Please follow Sporting Icons.
Okay, so in a previous video, in the channel members Q&A video that I recently done, I was asked a question about Saudi Arabia. And of course, with Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, would it happen, all that kind of stuff. So I want to dedicate this particular video to the subject of the impact of Saudi Arabia. Okay, because a lot of you have mentioned how you think it's good for boxing, and a lot of you have mentioned how you don't think it's good for boxing. So I want to give you my thoughts, my opinion, and I will let you in on a little bit of a secret as to something that's going to be happening, or it looks like it's going to be happening at least anyway. So stick with me. Now, for those of you who wonder what kind of money that they have at their disposal in Saudi Arabia for boxing, well, they have it for sport in general. £538 billion is their public investment fund. £538 billion, which equates to around $776 billion. Now, obviously, the guy who is head of all this, the guy who authorises the money and everything else, may not necessarily be the king. In fact, his seventh son in the Prime Minister, in the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Now, we're going to talk about him in a second, but before we do, the governor of the Public Investment Fund is Yasir Al-Rumyan. Now, he is the owner of my local football team, Newcastle United. Now, they haven't invested money in Newcastle United in the sense of brought in Ronaldo and Messi and Neymar and all these kind of ones yet. At some point, I fully expect them to do so, okay? But right now, Yasir Al-Rumyan, he is the governor. In other words, he somewhat controls the investment fund, the money of Saudi Arabia. And they seem to be doing a lot of investments in sport in general. Of course, they have Formula One over there. They have football over there with huge signings over there. And of course, with Newcastle United here in the UK and so forth and so on. And of course, with boxing. Now, the Prime Minister, the seventh son of the King, Mohammed bin Salman. Now, he coordinates, if you like, Riyadh season. Riyadh season is not Skill Challenge Promotions. Skill Challenge Promotions is Prince Khalid, the ninth son of the king. Okay? And of course, the boxing promoter for that one will be Amir Abdullah. Okay? Now, they are two separate entities. Ultimately, of course, they're all going to come out of the same pot. Okay? But, for intents and purposes, they are separate. Riyadh season. Now, Riyadh season is where Tyson Fury will be taking on Francis Ngannou. He's going to be kicking off Riyadh season. All right? Now, I did the video on this one where Tyson Fury thanked the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman back in February because they came to a deal, they came to an agreement that Tyson Fury was going to kick off Riyadh season. So this happened in February, a couple of months before the negotiations with Alexander Usyk broke down. So that will tell you in itself when he's coming out with the whole game changed all over his social media around that time for a period of about 30 minutes before he quickly deleted it. Quite clearly, either Frank Warren or Spencer from Gold Star or Bob Arum, whoever, told him to take it down because we're supposed to be negotiating with Alexander Usyk. We don't want to let the cat out of the bag that we're not going to fight Usyk. In fact, we're going to go to Riyadh season instead for a whole lot more money. No, didn't want to do that, but All Sport and Icons caught it, right? So, it is what it is. Now, Mohammed bin Salman, the Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia, is very, very keen on sport, as is his other brother, his younger brother, in Prince Khalid, through Skill Challenge. Now, Skill Challenge, of course, have signed some boxers, Alexander Usyk, Badu Jack, and of course, quite a few others, with some of them being local Saudi Arabians and that as well. And while at the minute they're not putting on a show or 2 or 3 shows every month and things like that, they're not doing that. They're doing it once in a while. So at some point, because they're signing fighters, I fully expect them to start putting on regular shows. Now, of course, they can't put them all on in Saudi Arabia because of at certain times of the year, they have extreme heat. So they can't do them then. And of course, each and every year, they observe the month of Ramadan as well. So, of course, they can't do it consistently from January to December. They can't do that, okay? But what I will let you in on something here is that during those seasons where they can't put on boxing and things like that, they will be looking at my local stadium here, Newcastle United. And I know who it is that they have in mind to run the show. Huge events as well. So stay tuned for all of that. There's a little bit of inside intel for you. Now, boxing long term with the involvement of Saudi Arabia, is it a good thing, is it a bad thing? Now, ultimately, of course, if you're a big name player in boxing, the Saudis are going to look at you. And I'm pretty sure that once the Saudis start getting like a little bit of momentum and start signing up more fighters here, there and everywhere, and then putting on their own shows, then of course, there's going to be a whole heap of money. You're not going to earn money here in the UK or the United States of America like you're going to in Saudi Arabia. Even the UK and US combined do not pay and cannot pay what the Saudis are going to pay. Now, does this mean that Saudis are losing money? Yeah, probably, of course. But at the same time, they won't be losing as much money as you think that they are, because they have a lot of investors, a lot of people who will be willing to sponsor and things like that, because of the nature and the size of the events, okay? Not just in Saudi Arabia, but in and around the Middle East. Again, you see, you've got other ones out there who also want to be putting on big fight nights. Qatar, Dubai, these kind of places where they have a lot of money. Are they direct competitors of Saudi? In some ways, yeah. And fully expect them at some point to start ramping it up where they're going to literally go head to head with each other at some point with boxing. So that's good for boxers if you are of a certain stature within boxing. Because very soon it's going to be long gone are the days where here in the UK and in the United States of America and wherever else, you're going to have big fight nights. Because they're probably going to happen in the Middle East somewhere, whether it be Saudi, Qatar, wherever. Dubai. That's where these big fight nights are going to happen, because that's where the money is. So for those of you who enjoyed the times of Joshua versus Klitschko, or Fury versus White, or a potential Fury versus Joshua at Wembley Stadium, those days may not be here for too much longer, so enjoy them while you can. The big fight nights out there involving Gervonta Davis in America, and Errol Spence Jr. versus Terence Crawford, and all these kind of ones, make the most of them. Because there's a very real chance that when Saudi click that button to say go, they could well take over. They can afford to totally blow everybody off the map in boxing. That's all promoters, all of them. So I fully expect some of the promoters around, if you've got some kind of talent, that they're going to be getting them under contract so they can't be touched unless they're going to be bought out. And I expect that kind of thing to happen. I do. Now, of course, they will be working with other promoters in and around, and they're not just going to do this immediately and just overtake boxing immediately. No, it's going to be like a little bit of a slow trickle, and as soon as they start to build up the brand and all that kind of stuff, they're just going to go for it. So you're going to have boxing at Riyadh season, you can have boxing through Skilled Challenge Promotions, you're going to have boxing here in the UK at St James's Park, Newcastle United. And of course, they're probably going to do them elsewhere in the world and that as well. Not just boxing, but other sports, okay? But boxing and boxers, is it good for long term? Again, that depends on how long the Saudis plan on being in boxing for. Is this just a big push right now just to try and build up tourism to Saudi Arabia, try and get people's eyes and attention on Saudi Arabia as possible tourist destinations? Ultimately, that is the goal. Of course it is. That's why Riyadh season is so big and goes on for so long. Because that's what they want to do. They want to attract people to Saudi Arabia. Not just Muslims who's going to go to Mecca and that, but you and I. That's the whole point of it. So, of course, once it becomes, and if it becomes a popular destination for tourists, are they then going to back off with the boxing and the sport and that in general? Possibly. Very, very possibly. But for now, if you're a boxer, there's a good opportunity there. You build yourself up to a certain level, and they're probably going to want you. But it will impact here in the UK, it will impact in the United States of America, it will. Where the big fight nights, you're not going to have them on your front doorstep anymore. You won't even have them in your country full stop, because they're going to be probably in Saudi Arabia or Qatar or Dubai or wherever. But of course that will mean as well that any kind of big fight nights that we have will be a case of a lot of fighters will look at it and say, well, you know, I could fight at Wembley Stadium and earn, I don't know, 5 or 10 million. Nah, it's not really worth getting out of bed for that, is it? I'll just go to Saudi and get 50 or 60 million. That will become the situation. It will be. Why fight at the Barclays Centre in New York and earn 7 or 8 million when I can go to Saudi and earn 40 or 50 million? That's how it's going to be. Is it good for boxing? Is it bad for boxing? Well, I suppose it depends on whether or not that you like going to the fight nights. Now, it's not going to be great for American boxing because obviously Saudi and America are on totally different time zones. So, of course, when their evening fight nights happen, this will be early afternoon in America. Obviously, depending on what part and what state that you're in America, of course. But it's not ideal. People don't really like watching boxing in the daytime or in some parts of the world, like which could be the morning. But they want to take over. This much I do know. And there are big plans. And yes, there are big plans at St James's Park as well. I said, I know who that they're looking at to run the shows. But for now, it's just interesting to just sit back and watch. See what kind of fights they're going to have. What fighters that they're going to sign. At some point, I fully expect them to just open up that checkbook and go, right, we want you, you, and you. Like a sweet shop. And they're just going to take over and sign up as many boxers as they possibly can. And even if they're under contract, well, they can end up buying them out of contract. They can afford to take over boxing. So if you're a promoter out there, you really want to be in their good books. You do. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the impact of Saudi Arabia. The only question is, how long are they going to be around for? What kind of damage will it be after, if they leave boxing? Because fighters will be so used to the idea of having a huge amount of money to then going back to looking at 3 or 4 million as, nah, you're right, I'll just retire now then. So long term, it could have a negative effect. But I said that depends on how long the Saudis and those from Dubai and Qatar want to continue in boxing. So anyway, my thoughts, drop me yours, click on the subscribe, catch you next video.